Mr. Kerrigan. Ms. Cooney.
Here.
Mr. Curtis. Mr. Dortch.
Here.
Mr. Finland.
Here.
Mr. Flynn.
Here.
Mr. Hall. Mr. Hawkins.
Here.
Mr. Humke.
Here.
Mr. Sullivan.
Here.
Ms. Weber. Ms. Zadra.
Let the record show a quorum is present. I heard from Mr. Hall, who is at a Airport Authority meeting or committee meeting, and may be here if time permits. I also heard from Ms. Weber, who is making her way to Washington. She is going to see the president and the senator, and she's going to solve the, oh, sorry, wrong speech. She's going back for a national NACO meeting. And they should be, it should be shown as excused. They contacted me, so let us do a pledge of allegiance. Mr. Curtis, would you lead us in the pledge? Thank you very much. There is next the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments? Anybody wish to move any items around?
Move to approve.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. That would take us to initial public comment. Do you have any request to speak cards? Is there any person present who has not filled out a card but wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will close initial public comment. Review and approval of the minutes. Does anyone wish any clarifications, explanations, amendments?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. I was, sorry, let me find it. It said the last meeting someone expressed dissatisfaction with the engineer on the Reno-Sparks Livestock Event Center RV space project. And I just wanted it, I don't know if somebody did, but I just wanted it, I think it was me that was saying something, but it was the project manager, not the engineer.
All right. I think we can make that change. That is a significant change. Do you want it to show questioning or dissatisfaction? Okay, roger that. Okay. Are there any other amendments? May we have a motion?
Motion to approve minutes with the change that Mr. Hawkins proposed.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion of the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. That takes us to the President's report. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, February has been a very promising month thus far, and we're almost at the end, or I guess we are at the end today. We had a stellar performance in January. It was great to see our numbers so strong. We actually came in 125,000 more in revenue than we anticipated with our aggressive forecast. So Safari Club and other events and the better skiing conditions this year really delivered for the region. So that was a true bright start to kick off the calendar year. We also had a wonderful experience in Washington, D.C. with this year's annual sales mission. And I think that the lesson to be learned here is that when you're not a name brand in the association community, you have to be more creative and more aggressive and more clever than the competition. So we put together a string of events this year with our team that we are very, very proud of and really paid off for this destination. I'm just going to quickly recap them because they showed a lot of creativity and they really did work as well as we hoped they would. We decided instead of just going and making presentations to offices with PowerPoints like so many destinations do, we would do something more creative and give people several options of things that met their time frame, their schedule, their interests. So we did a lineup on 3 days, and the first day, we had sales calls during the day with our individual hotel partners. There were 16 of us there from the RSTVA and the major hotels in town, all dressed in our orange Reno Tahoe shirts for unity. And the evening we went to Living Social, and Living Social is a company that some of you may know because of their online presence, but they also have a beautiful brownstone in the Chinatown section of downtown Washington, D.C. And we booked that facility and invited people to come for an evening of the arts. And they showed up, they had cocktails with our team where we schmoozed for a while. Then we fed them a delicious dinner, and then we moved into an adjacent room where easels were set up with blank canvases. And over the next hour, we proceeded to give them a reference photo of Lake Tahoe, and they got a chance with some instruction to paint their own vision of the scene of Lake Tahoe during the wintertime. A very unusual approach. They all went into it knowing that that was the evening's festivities, so everyone who signed up was someone who was interested in this concept, and I got to tell you, they had a wonderful time. It probably was aided by the fact that we kept on pouring the wine, but people who had never painted before were able to show some creativity and learn some fine pointers on how to paint, and then take home a finished canvas at the end of the day that reflected on the fun evening they had with the gang from Reno Tahoe. So very, very clever. We had 21 meeting planners attend that event with us and had real quality time with them during the several hours they were with us. The next day, the first day, we had decorated a conference room at the headquarters of the American Society of Association Executives, where, as you all know, we are a strategic partner. They're top tier of sponsorship. So we had the right to take a conference room in their headquarters, but we did something a little bit different. We created a virtual Reno Tahoe there, and we made appointments with people who could spare an hour sometime during their day. We sent a limousine to their offices and picked them up at an appointed time, drove them downtown, delivered them to the ASAE building where they came in, and then in groups of 3 to 7 were for the next half hour or so, were given basically a pitch on Reno Tahoe in a fun and different way. It started out with a flat screen that showed our new sales video to get them in the mood and the spirit of our outdoors lifestyle orientation here. We then moved over to presentations, 2-minute presentations on all of our partner hotels, given by the representatives that were with us in D.C., where they were able to talk about the highlights and the unique attributes of their properties. And then we went over to a board that had hanging mobiles of unique things about our destination. For example, coffee under $40 a gallon. You've heard us talk about that before. That really plays well with meeting planners. That is a fraction of what they pay in most destinations, and it really gets their attention. After that little pitch, we went to what we called our Pinterest board. And if you're familiar with Pinterest, it's a very successful website where people can pin articles and links of things that they're personally interested in. Well, we did sort of the manual version, and we had laying on a table all these different things we had talked about that were unique about our destination, and we invited the meeting planners to come up and pick a couple of them and hang them on the wall, showing what they were most impressed with to learn about our destination. The proximity to Lake Tahoe was popular, the inexpensive coffee, the wide variety of large hotels and resorts. It was interesting to see the continuity over the course of the day. This went from 9 to 3 of these series of presentations. And then we'd clear most of those down for the next group because we didn't want to use up all the most important ones on each shift. And then we took them over to a literal Wheel of Fortune, and they were able to spin the wheel, and when it ended on a certain color, we then asked them a question that went with that color about some of the things we had shared with them during the last half hour. All the while, by the way, they were eating a breakfast, a snack, lunch, or an afternoon snack, depending upon the time that they had chosen. The hotels had donated very nice gifts. We gave them the gifts when they won. Everybody won. And then we chit-chatted a little bit longer, put them back on a limousine, but we sent one of our salespeople from the RSCVA back to their office with them so they could chat on the way back and download information real time about what their experience had been like. The other element I didn't mention was everybody who attended, we donated $100 towards their association's foundation or to one of our charities or a charity of their choice. So we made it time efficient, we made it informative and fun, we made it worthwhile from a public interest standpoint, and then on the way back we said, well, hey, what did you think? Was it great? Fantastic feedback, outstanding. People said, I've never seen anything like this. It was so convenient for you to bring me here and back. It was just the right length of time. I got to eat a meal, so it was a good use of my time, and I had a lot of fun and learned new stuff. So really a very creative execution that we were very proud of. The folks from ASAE stopped by as well and said they'd never seen anything like it, which was great to hear from them. That evening, we sponsored the monthly meeting of a group called AMPS, Association Meeting Professionals. And as the sponsor, I was able to make a presentation to the group. We showed them our video on a big screen, and then after the evening's presentation from an outside speaker, we then went to a cocktail reception and spent the next hour schmoozing once again with about 50 meeting planners from the Washington, D.C. area. And then the third and final day of our sales mission, we went to on sales calls and job interviews that John Liner and I did with some candidates in the D.C. market, and then met again in the late afternoon and went to a place called Culinary. And we had used Culinary once before last year to great success, so we decided to expand it this year. Culinary is a professional teaching kitchen. The executive chef used to work for Four Seasons and is a woman who is very, very talented and personable. And we brought the folks in. We had, I think, 24 planners at that event. And they came in knowing that it was going to be a cooking evening. They were presented with a pile of ingredients, broke up into teams, and then they had an hour to create an entree based upon the ingredients that everyone was working with. People had a blast. Once again, the wine was flowing, people were meeting new friends, people were chit-chatting with the folks from Reno, Tahoe, and at the end, then a team went around, tasted everyone's entrees, and voted on the winner. To great fanfare. Then everyone sat down and enjoyed a delicious meal prepared by the professional chef and then headed out. I got to tell you, this was a grand slam home run. So much so that the gentleman there from the American Trucking Association was saying how it was the most clever event he'd attended in years. And he really just was blown away by what he learned about Reno, Tahoe, but also how clever we were. We were riding the shuttle bus back to our hotel that evening, 15 minutes after the event was over, and one of our salespeople got an email from somebody who had attended the event with a lead for 3,500 room nights in 2015. The person was so taken with the Reno Tahoe experience, they couldn't wait to the next day to send us a lead for a piece of business they want to consider our destination for, and others have followed since then. So we did a lot of day in, day out sales calls during the day, but each evening, and in the case of the ASE event, during the full day, we really touched people in a way that spoke to them and really created a bond with Reno Tahoe and got a lot of information across to a lot of folks who knew very little about our destination. It was really a terrific event, and all of our hotel partners have since followed up with us, most in writing, saying how terrific it was and how proud they were to be a part of it. So we learned a lot from it. It's an approach we're going to continue in the future when we go to Chicago this fall, and of course we go back to DC every year, but really, really very successful. What made it even more fun, I believe, and more productive was I talked to Mary Beth Seawald at NBC, local affiliate here, and it said to her, you know, we're doing some really interesting, different things in Washington, D.C. in the next couple of weeks, and wouldn't it be great if we could shoot some HD video for you and send it back to you, and you could basically report to the local population on what the RSCVA is up to in the nation's capital, trying to find new business for our destination. She loved the idea. We worked with one of their reporters, and basically we took the RSCVA's camera, shot segments every day, with the mindset that they would be shown the next morning, so we made reference to what happened last night, even though it was the same day, downloaded it overnight to the studio with a 3-hour time difference. The editors were able to choose and pick, and we started getting emails from folks back home about all the segments that people were seeing when they turned on the news in the morning. In reality, I DVR'd a couple of them when I got back. I didn't get all of it, but one day I watched a 2-hour segment on the morning news, and we had 5 different segments on the RSCVA the night before, most using different footage with a different aspect of what we had done. So people here locally need to know the aggressive new approach we're taking, because it's important for the business community to support the fact that we're not sitting on our heels, waiting for customers to call us. And we got really positive feedback from that TV coverage. So it wasn't the most important aspect, but it was a way to kind of bring back home the kind of things that we're doing on behalf of this destination to get us on track with meetings and conventions. We actually have a loop that we showed at our legislative reception last week. It was a 9-minute loop that ran on the screens in the 10-pin club by Brunswick. Kingpin Club by Brunswick. And we're not going to show you the whole thing, but I've got a little segment of it here that shows one of the pieces from NBC to give you an idea of the kind of coverage they ran for us over a 3-day period. I think there's also a little bit of the Barrett Jackson announcement here, where some very nice things are said about our region by Craig Jackson, their CEO. So we'll just run a couple of minutes of this just so you get a taste.
Reno gets the next Barrett Jackson for 2014 to be part of Hot August Nights. Now, we've been going to Hot August Nights for quite a while. For those of you that haven't been there, it's a fun weekend. It's the weekend before Monterey. So our plan is have everybody come there and join us in Reno. I want you to know that we listen to you and we try to take your input into what you like, and I think that you guys will enjoy this. Reno has really gone through a lot of upgrades. The Atlantis Hotel that is tied to the convention center has one of the top 10 spas in the nation. The Reno-Tahoe area has a rich history of car collectors. And for those of you who don't know, other than Bill Harrah's, there's a lot of other great collections. The National Auto Museum, which is what's left from Harrah's collection, and some of the world's greatest car collections. A lot of great car collectors and just a rich history. Mayor, will you say something?
Thank you, Craig. My name's Bob Cashell, and I want to welcome all of the Barrett-Jackson family to Reno, Nevada. So come on, gang. We really appreciate it. Look forward to working with you, and thanks a lot, Craig.
They have really done a lot. For our customers, we'll get blocks of rooms at the Peppermill. All these people here from the Convention Visitors Bureau representing all the different hotels. It should be an awful lot of fun. Steve, you want to say something?
And more importantly, for you car girls and car guys and just people that love the atmosphere, there's nothing like Hot August Nights. It's just like Barrett-Jackson's experience. The two are going to collide. We're going to make some magic in that beautiful city of Reno, Nevada. So y'all come on out and join us. Looking forward to it.
Well, now we're going to pull in the first car of our 5000 series here. And get started.
Well, there's the big announcement. We'll be going to Reno, Nevada with Barrett-Jackson. Now out to the SBX staging lanes and
Pretty nice unscripted comments. So here's a sample segment.
After the hour on your Tuesday, well, the Reno-Sparks Convention and Visitors Authorities in Washington, D.C. right now on a sales mission. They are trying to get organizations to come here to visit the Reno-Tahoe area, and they are doing it in a very unique way. News 4's Alex Sachs is here to explain. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Bill. The RSCVA is shaking things up a bit over there in Washington. They're attracting organizations by setting up 3 days worth of activities. The group kicked off their first event last night called Living Social. We caught up with RSCVA President and CEO Chris Baum about the night.
Reno-Tahoe is a convention destination that a lot of folks aren't familiar with. So we come to Washington, D.C. every year, and we try to be creative in the ways we attract people to hear about our story.
And here's how the RSCVA got about 40 people from different organizations to join the interactive event. They had food, drinks, and the main part, painting. They had an instructor come in, and each person got to paint a picture of Lake Tahoe. All the while, they learned about the beautiful destination. Then, when it was all over, they got to take the painting home. Talk about a lasting impression, which is unlike anything the RSCVA's competition has ever done, aka other destinations. Usually, other groups will just meet and greet in a one-on-one type setting in an office. So certainly a unique way to attract organizations, which in the end could potentially bring millions to our local economy. In a bit, we're going to hear from one of the organizations to see if the sales pitch worked. We'll have their reaction coming up in the next half hour, Bill.
Great unscripted comments from a major figure in the association field. So, we felt really good about our time in Washington, D.C., and we're definitely going to see some new business as a result of that approach. Another big success recently was our Reno Reaches a Tipping Point press release, and we've been noting and accumulating all the top 10 lists and other recognition our destination's been receiving in the last year, and it's been really quite spectacular. In a wide and diverse variety of categories, we've been chosen by a lot of different organizations as worthy of note. Everything from best holiday celebrations for our Santa Crawl to best places for dogs, best places for women's health, top 10 ski resorts, top 10 mountain towns, top 10 places to buy retirement property. Just an incredibly diverse list of things on top of the investment by Apple, on top of the IBM Smart Cities, on top of Colin Kaepernick representing UNR so well in the NFL. So a lot of fun stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of serious stuff, but we decided to accumulate that in a press release and put it out electronically nationwide. And I'm pleased to say that over 150 news organizations have run that piece or have run with that piece, including CBS Money Watch, United Press International, San Francisco Chronicle, Boston Globe, New York Newsday. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, I got a call through Ben's office from a radio station in New York City that wanted to interview me live in the middle of the day. And we did a 15-minute interview on why Reno Tahoe is the next big thing. By the way, next big thing is our line, and as I've said to you before, people believe what they're told. So if we tell people we're the next big thing and we repeat it, after a while people are going to start saying, I hear Reno Tahoe is the next big thing. And sure enough, they bit with it. 15 minutes live radio, AM station in our nation's #1 city, talking about all the cool and unique things here, and with a very enthusiastic host. So we will continue to make releases like that as good news accumulates. But everything from Campo being a top 20 restaurant with Esquire to the fact we have wild horses here was of great fascination to people in the canyons of Manhattan. And the woman who was the moderator on the show actually said she'd like to come out to Reno and do her show live from there in the coming months, which we're going to certainly follow up with her on. So lots of great response from that. And it's a good example of how if you accumulate things until they have a real critical mass of newsworthiness, you're going to get a lot more coverage than if you throw out news releases all the time with little accomplishments. If you put out one top 10 list, it's not going to make national news. No one across the country is going to read about that. If you put out 30 of them in one easy-to-understand message, it's much more likely to create the kind of big hits we're looking for. Another success we're having thus far is our support for Senate Bill 165. Got a very, very nice follow-up email after our testimony last week in front of the Senate Revenue and Economic Development Committee from Debbie Smith, who said that we had done an excellent job presenting the facts of this initiative. We also heard from Claudia Vecchio, the head of NCOT, and she was saying how she heard through a number of sources how professional and impressive our presentation was, and that please keep her and the Lieutenant Governor informed so they can continue to support us. We were able to get out and get letters of support from EDAWN, from the Chamber of Northern Nevada, from the Airport Authority, from the mayors of Sparks and Reno. We're sitting down with UNR either Friday or Monday with their government affairs to talk about how this plays into their students' future. We also are presenting this to the Nevada Resort Association board on Tuesday of next week. So we continue to aggressively pursue this, believing that it's great for our hotels and great for the economic development of especially Northern Nevada, where we have a much more varied number of locations for film and TV production. We actually have several films we're looking at us right now. And we also have a TV series that will be shooting a pilot and hopes to shoot their 13 episodes here when they're picked up, if in fact we get this incentive passed. So a lot of positive development there. Senator Ford has been receiving a lot of counsel from us as he's been educated in this bill that he is sponsoring, and a lot of bipartisan support signed on as co-sponsors of the initiative. In terms of the travel industry in general, there's a lot of interesting numbers out there that seem to be somewhat in conflict, depending on what category you look at. In leisure travel, according to U.S. Travel Outlook, supposed to grow 1.2% this year and another 1.4% next year. Business travel is flat or up for about 90% of the reporting companies, and yet in the meetings industry, things are a little less clear. 18% of respondents on a Meeting Professionals International poll have negative feelings about the way things are going, and that's up for 14% in October. So certainly not a majority, but a significant number of meeting planners who aren't quite sure what the future holds for their industry. We still have a lot of issues with government meetings. This continues to be a hot topic in the industry, both in terms of government employees attending conventions and trade shows, some of which they make up a significant component of attendance, and also the meetings put on by our government entities about whether they can be held and how they should be held and who can attend them. It's still a hot topic, and as this group knows, we went from 50,000 room nights a year to 15,000 or less because of this lack of certainty, and certainly the situation in Washington, D.C. now with the budget doesn't make things any clearer. So we continue to move forward. I have put my name in as a potential participant on a government panel that's been created to address these issues. I figured if we're concerned about them, I'd volunteer my time to try and help find a solution. Have not heard back yet, but I will let you know if I am selected from the national nominees. This is something that we really want to see resolved so we can all move forward with a category that used to be very important to this destination. Now, the U.S. Travel Report also indicated, quote, that the travel industry is experiencing soaring demand and record room nights, prompting confidence and, quote, rate increases in earnest. Now, it's wonderful to note that our average rate was up $17 over last year in the month of January. That's a wonderful year-over-year increase and really is responsible for a lot of that additional revenue coming to the RSCVA. However, our destination continues to lag what is obviously a national trend, which is to get the rates up after years of them being depressed. This is something I continue to address on an individual basis with our CEOs of our largest properties. And the good news is our rates were up $70 year over year, and the sun came up the next morning and disaster did not befall the destination. We believe that rates are more elastic than a lot of folks in town are giving them credit for, and that a $5 or $10 difference in what is being charged now in a market that's under market value is not going to scare away all the customers, but will in fact help everyone's bottom line and solve a lot of the issues that the hotels and the RSCVA has relative to revenues. So we will continue harping on that point, but we seem to have some friends in high places now who agree that that's part of the solution. So the more voices that speak out in unison within the limitations of antitrust laws, the better, we believe. The Center for Exhibition Industry Research just issued a new report on trade shows. There's been a lot of discussion in the industry about, are trade shows passé? Do they still matter? And what they found is that 69% of exhibitions, of attendees come to exhibitions to shop, and 66% come to learn. The most important goals were seeing new technology, talking to experts, and gaining industry insights. So according to a professor at Baylor University, quote, while new channels of marketing communication seem to spring up every day, exhibitions continue to deliver value and meet the needs of today's business professional. It appears that well-run trade shows still do have a place in the 21st century, and a lot of other data seems to support that a lot of the biggest trade shows are having record attendance. So shows need to make sure that they're suiting the needs of their industry they serve, but there's no question that the trade show is not dead, which is good news to us who have major facilities built for those that type of meetings. There was also a very interesting article in USA Today about under the heading of "Don't write off print ads just yet." A lot of folks think everything has to be online today, or ad agencies love to do TV because it's expensive and they can burn through budgets really quickly and do things that win awards. But the reality is some of the biggest companies in the world, like Harley-Davidson, Apple, IKEA, Lego, Google, and Ray-Ban, still spend very heavily, a very high percentage of their ad budgets on print. That's kind of our philosophy here. We believe that print is still alive, especially for trade purposes. And some of the points that were made, which I think are terrific, were that someone who reads what you have to say is more engaged than somebody who passively watches it, especially online. Online videos are like elevator music now. A very small percentage of people actually pay attention to them. One idea is more memorable than many. Print advertising tends to be focused, whereas a lot of video tries to get too many ideas jammed in. Good print ads are salutary partners in the publications they run in, not interrupters. So ads are part of the content you buy when you buy a magazine or newspaper, whereas on TV, they're when you go to get a snack or the bathroom, and very often people now DVR things and fast forward through the ads, which is causing great consternation in the ad industry. And then stimulation is not as effective as explanation on words. So a lot of us have seen TV ads and we talk to our friends about how cool they were and how funny they were and how interesting they were, and then you ask them, well, who was the ad for? I'm not really sure. It was either Budweiser or Miller. Well, a lot of money was spent on that ad, and it entertained people, but did it make them buy something? Did it make them think differently about a product? And a lot of TV ads win awards, but they don't win new customers. So we advertise in different ways. We use radio. We don't use TV too much because of its expense. We use print. We use billboards. We use online. We try to use online in a way that we think is most effective. But I think some folks have rushed too heavily to say that the old media is dead and the new media is king. And in reality, the old media is alive. You just have to use it well. And we think with our aggressive advertising creative, we do just that. As a matter of fact, I always love to bring these along. These just came out this week. Here's the new issue of Convene magazine, which is PCMA's publication, and there on page 3 is our No More Tears ad for the RSCVA in Reno Tahoe. Here's Association Now, ASAE's magazine. Once again, inside front cover is Reno Tahoe's ad. We negotiated it, we hold them to it, and as a result, people see our message when they're not tired and at the end of the back of the book. We think that's a really important part, and it's our obligation when we spend taxpayers' money to maximize the impact it has on people. People are still talking about this campaign and how, boy, Reno Tahoe is really shouting now when they were so quiet before. On the operations side, we are continuing to look at options for us for our office space here. Our current lease, long-term lease, is up in this fall in October. We've been in this space for a long time. Our numbers have gone from 160 or so to around 100 employees total full-time. So the number of people housed in these offices is significantly less than it was a couple of years ago. So much so we have a subtenant, which creates some issues sometimes. So we've been looking at space around town. We've narrowed it down. A team of management has looked at a lot of options, and I've gone out with them. We've narrowed it down. There's a great option at the U.S. Bank building over by Meadowood Mall with half of the top floor in that building. It's where EDAWN happens to be by chance. It's a beautiful building. We'd be able to build it out. It's a little bit shorter in space than we'd like to see by a couple thousand square feet than ideal, but we could do it. And also, Brian has talked to our landlord here. He obviously would hate to see a large tenant like us leave, and he has put together a proposal that consolidates our offices more on one side of the building. We would retain this room, but we would give up a lot of the space where sales and marketing are now, and consolidate more in the space that our subtenant is in, and at significant savings. So we're looking at that as well. We'll be presenting both of these options to the Facilities Committee in an upcoming meeting, and then to the full board. We need to make a decision sometime in the next few months. But either way, we're going to save money and have offices that, if we stay here, are reconditioned to provide a little bit more upbeat environment, but at a great savings and cost, or new offices in a new location that is still conveniently located for the needs of our team. So I feel good about the options available to us and the fact we'll save a significant amount of money on our balance sheet. And then the new Kingpin Club by Brunswick. This is a fantastic facility. I know it was a busy day last Thursday when we had our legislative reception, not only for locals and local electeds and important business leaders, but down in Carson City. A lot of folks had committee meetings that ran late that day, unfortunately. And the governor had asked to rush through the online gaming bill, and a lot of folks had their schedules flipped around as a result of that. But we still had a terrific turnout. Those who attended were very impressed with the facility, enjoyed the event. Porter Gordon Silver, our government relations firm, said that they felt it was very worthwhile for our efforts. And David welcomed the group, which we appreciated. We had some comments from Oscar Delgado about how terrific that facility was. And then we entertained folks and gave them a good time and showed them that we really are using the $2 fund wisely going forward on major improvements to our facility. We also believe that it'll be a very important facility revenue-wise, because there was a lot of great comments on how some of the downtown properties wanted to use it for customer events. I think Gordon Silver booked their Christmas party the next day there. Thank you very much. I think that was the first booking from an outside entity, but we consider you part of the family, but you still have to pay. But I think it really was a terrific launch, and this is the kind of event we'll be doing more frequently as we have issues that we want the folks in Carson City and the local business community to know about. Once again, it shows the professionalism of our organization, the new directions we're taking. So that is my President's report. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a comment: the use of the video at these meetings, I think, is very helpful, and I think I understand the difference between your comments as to paid media, such as television, versus earned media.
Exactly.
And you're doing a great job on the earned media side, or allegedly free medium.
Right. Thank you.
Great job. While I've got the floor, I want to ask a question. You mentioned wild horses and the connection, and that excites people. Just as to make an editorial comment, just like public lands really excites people in the inside the Beltway. They want to own it, and they say, someday we'll go there and we'll walk in the land, and we'll call it ours, but I digress. Ecotourism. Have you reached out to the wild horse advocacy groups? Because one of the things they talk about is bringing people here for an ecotourism connection. Now, I don't know if they just camp out beside the stream or if they actually make reservations for hotel rooms. I don't mean to disparage them, but it's a serious initiative.
It is, and I've actually had some conversations with some parties about that. It's not very far along right now, and I don't see any party really stepping up at this point that has a program we could partner with. But we are keeping an eye on it because, as I think I've noted this group before, well, not only do we realize, but also NCOT realizes it because the new ad campaign that is about to be launched is very much about the sort of the openness of our state and the Wild West nature of our state and things that are very appealing to people in other parts of the country. So I think that this resonates well. We're ready to jump on it if somebody's out there, but there has to be a wholesaler or an operator or someone in Washoe County that we can partner with to really make this happen. And I think it's coming. I just don't think it's quite there yet.
Great, thank you. Any other questions as to the President's report? Questions, comments? Go ahead, ma'am.
To thank you and your team for great DC events. Those were very impressive, and I know you got some great results, so congratulations on that. We're looking forward to some good ones in the future.
Thank you. We can always do better, but I think it was, we've always done a good job there. This year was a great job, I think.
Go ahead.
Again, I echo the same comment. Nice job. I get excited just listening to your report, and I'm sure that the people in Washington do too as well. You mentioned that the tourism travel was up 1.4% this year, anticipated to be up.
Forecasted nationally.
Yeah. And I think that's great, and I feel the same as I travel around as well. And I assume we're well positioned to take advantage of that. I'm just wondering, are we seeing that same sort of increase here locally?
Well, obviously, it's a little bit early in the year. I mean, I do believe it's hard to break out, but I do believe that the ski tourist has been a major part of our success in January, February. There's no question. I've been out at a number of the ski resorts, and the numbers on the slopes are very heavy, and I've talked to the folks there as well. You know, obviously, we're going into the spring, which is a little bit of a shoulder for us, and then into the summer when things are going to be busy. The sort of anecdotal evidence I'm getting is that things are starting to pick up. I think one of the challenges is we are still working on a way to tell our story in our #1 market with our co-op this year. We haven't had as universal support for it from the partner properties as we had last year, so we're dealing with less funds, and we're still trying to find a solution that will bring in more partners on that. So we do want to take advantage of this, and we will have a presence in Northern California, but we want to make sure we have as big a presence as possible going forward as things continue to improve. We put some extra money in last year because we had the funds available and we wanted to shout in a loud way about our new direction. But my biggest concern at this point is making sure we have a campaign there that impacts that important market in the leisure travel area to the best extent possible.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for the President? All right, then I'm trying to recall, do we cast a vote to accept the report? We just accept it. Okay. Let the record show that there's general acceptance. Mr. President, would you move on to Marketing Committee?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask John Leinen to handle the first element because it was something that he specifically was involved with when I was not available for the last meeting, but it's regarding the pricing of our facilities for hotel partners.
Good morning. We had a very interesting discussion at the last Sales and Marketing Committee, as well as a follow-up with some of our hotel partners. There is a policy, a pricing policy that's in place that, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of really started back in 2005 and was revalidated in writing in 2009, where our hotel partners can purchase our convention center on behalf of their customer at a rate of 10 cents less than the rack rate on the net square footage of the convention center. what we're finding is that pricing policy today is somewhat hindering our ability to really perhaps go after business in the way that is necessary to win the business. And the challenge that we have is that we have certain hotels that have large amount of space that can compete with a convention center and a Atlantis package, or a Reno Events Center and a Silver Legacy package, or any one of those combinations. And so we're trying to find this balance in this pricing model that doesn't necessarily provide any advantages to those hotels that don't have that meeting space, but yet gives them some pricing model that they can buy the space at less cost. So we're trying to find this balance. We found a couple of opportunities where we're pricing the business for the same value, but the value that's coming back in return is significantly different. So long story short, we had an interesting conversation with our hotel partners. Their perception is that our rack rate may have been increasing at a greater capacity than what the market will bear. Not sure that we agree with that. We found that competitively our rack rates are in line with what the other cities are doing. We just discount it at a rate that finally can reach a threshold that our hotels aren't having to pay significant subsidies to subsidize the cost of that center. So long story short, I've got work to do to try to put together a pricing model that will be acceptable to our hotel partners as well as acceptable to our financial being. And so still work to be done. Good dialogue. It was interesting to learn and see which hotels are supporting what pricing, and then some of our other hotels are saying, yeah, that's not right. So it's a dilemma. I don't know if you have, Pat, you were at that meeting, if there was anything you would add to that.
It was good dialogue to bring it forward. It's been a policy that was done so many years ago, and I think it's good to revisit. Times have changed. Our competition, not just locally, but throughout the country's changed. And I think it's good to go back to the drawing board and look at how are we pricing competitively to other destinations so that we as a destination are more competitive with how we're pricing our facilities. And I think it was a good discussion to move forward with and come up with a happy medium between the RCVA and the property so that we can book more business.
Is there any other discussion from members of the marketing committee?
Thanks,
Cooney.
John. I know this is a really difficult position. Of course, from my perspective, I just want to make sure we get something that's consistently executed with all the properties and that is competitive, because that's like what's happened is that we have a consistent policy, but it's no longer competitive. What would be, I know you brought this up before, and it was at the marketing committee meeting, and we approved you to kind of go forward. So what are your next steps, and will you be bringing, of course, a policy per se back to this body for approval?
Yes, there's two suggestions that we need to look at. One is what is our NSF charge, and is that the right charge that it needs to be at? So the solution might be, and again, might is the key word there. It might be that we need to relook at what our NSF charges are, or work with a tiered structure for the partner rate, where the discount that's given to our hotel partners is based on the value of the business, meaning how many room nights they're bringing to the destination, what their food and beverage spend is, what some of the other ancillary charges are. So there's two sides to look at. I need to sit down and do the due diligence and map that out and look at how that impacts our revenues, because that's the other critical thing, is we want to get business booked, and we want to see if it would create incremental lift in business, or if it's just discounting but we're not getting any more revenues. And so the long story short is I've got to pull that together and find a time to do that and present that and bring it back to the Sales and Marketing Committee, and then bring it back to the next board. Ms. Carano.
Thank you. At the Sales and Marketing Committee, we directed you to put together a panel of hoteliers. Have you done that?
Yes.
Okay, so you've had those meetings already?
You had one meeting, yes.
Okay.
That was the discussion with Peppermill, Grand Sierra, Nugget, Atlantis, that was it, Legacy.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Lyon, thank you very much. Anything further on this?
No, nothing for approval right now, other than we just need to move forward with identifying that pricing policy, so just an update.
Understood. Do you have a time frame?
It'll be sometime in April, where I'll be able to present to the next Sales and Marketing Committee.
Great.
Ultimately, we need to get to a point where it is good for customers and good for our partners, but it's also going to require some people to say, okay, I'm not going to continue saying, he's getting a better deal than I am. At some point, we have to say, what's good for this community is good for me in the long run, because sometimes on issues we find that some of these old resentments keep us from doing the right thing to get more business in the future, and that can be challenging. So right now, in a quest to be fair, we're kind of unfair in a number of situations. So it's a tough issue, but I'm confident we can find a solution, especially if everyone has an open mind about the rising tide raising all ships.
I think Ms. Cooney expressed that clearly in the phrase that she used, and that's really what it comes down to. Are we competitive in the market?
Yep.
Great. All right. Please continue.
Convention sales production, December was 9,093 room nights definite. That was against a goal of 19,000, which was 48% of goal. What often happens at year end, as many members of this board may remember, is that people are all scrambling to try and get things signed definite before the end of the year. Salespeople are pushing. A lot of people, the associations and corporations, want to get it off their desk and start the year afresh. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and a number of things we anticipated closing in December actually ended up closing in January. So for a lot of organizations, the December to January unit almost has to be looked at as one, because cumulatively they're the sort of the year-end production. We were down 28 room nights over last year, but through December year to date, we were at 68,346, which is 60% of goal, and up 26,610 room nights, or 63% over the same time the previous year. The good news in January, we had a significantly better month at 14,354 definite room nights, still 75% of goal, not 100%, but up 9,960 room nights, or 226% over last year. And that puts us year to date through January at 82,700, which is 62% of goal, up 36,530, or 79% over the same time last year. It's important to note we've been down a salesperson in Southern California and are now down a salesperson in Washington, D.C. However, the pipeline is continuing to grow. And with the departure of those two salespeople, we did the prudent and conservative thing and went back and looked at the books and cleaned up some of the things that those former employees had left behind. And the pipeline is now 364,700 room nights, 179 opportunities as of February 27th. That's up from 311,280 room nights and 151 opportunities as of February 1st. So the pipeline dropped to 311,000 once we cleaned up those former national sales managers' bookings. So we actually took it down to a clearer number, and then we have since added on a number of new leads and potentials with our reduced sales team. So the good news is that we're booking more with fewer people in the interim, and the books are cleaned up to reflect real numbers going forward. There were 38 leads totaling 69,500 room nights added this month. So that's terrific performance versus our traditional pace in producing leads. And 7 of them were middle-size events that is our sweet spot, with 800 to 2,000 rooms per night peak. So it's not all little stuff. A lot of it is really good, new, solid business that we're pursuing for this destination. We've already noted the DC sales mission. I won't say anything more from that, except that we do have specific business. There are 4 leads that came out of people we met with there specifically. 2 of them were worth 5,000 room nights. And we've got a number of other things working. So we saw a number of customers we had already had leads out with. We had customers we were talking with, and we had customers we were trying to get on the books. So it's a combination of moving people forward who we already had a relationship with and starting a relationship with new organizations, but very promising. We're delighted to announce that Julie Greer is joining us to handle the Southern California market, or the Southwest market as we called it. She starts March 11th. She has a highly successful 10-year career with Hyatt Hotels that she's leaving behind to join the RSCVA. John and I were very impressed with her in our interviews, and she's working at an 1,800-room property in San Diego, the Hyatt, which I've stayed at, Hyatt Manchester, beautiful convention hotel. So she comes with some real relevant large convention hotel experience on the West Coast and a lot of customers that hopefully she'll be able to convert to Reno Tahoe fans. So that's an A-plus hire that we're very excited about, and she'll be doing her orientation with us in the very near future.
If I may make a comment, with this hire and then the hire that we're trying to fill in DC and seeing the caliber of candidates that are coming through, I want to kind of flash back to when we were trying to transition the team before, and one of the things that maybe we don't always realize is what we're doing now with our marketing efforts and our branding and creating visibility is also helping us on our recruiting side. And that's been very, very, as we try to recruit the people in DC right now, we're getting some great opportunities, and unfortunately we just missed one, but she decided she didn't want to take on any additional responsibilities while she's having some transitions in her family life. But we are getting some really good caliber people looking at us, and we didn't have that too long ago. Now that we stabilized leadership and we've got a bigger presence out there, it's big help on the recruitment side.
We also are continuing our approach of getting high-level industry groups here to expose our destination to people who are thought leaders and people who matter and people who travel in the right circles. You'll remember last year we had both the Experience annual meeting and the Helms-Briscoe annual meeting that brought hundreds of meeting planners from two of the largest third-party meeting planner companies out there, which is a segment that has grown dramatically in recent years. That was a real coup, and I take no credit for that. That happened before I got here, the booking of that, but I was delighted that it happened my first year here to create a good base. Our partnership with ASAE has created a lot of opportunities. John and I have said to ASAE as one of our unique benefits, we want an annual ASAE conference to be held in Reno Tahoe that is oriented towards young up-and-comers, people who are relatively early in their career but have incredible potential and are seen as the leaders of tomorrow. Our thought is if we can get somebody in their 20s or in their early 30s who's on their way up, and get them imprinted with Reno Tahoe relatively early in their career, we'll have decades of partnership potential with them. We like the 55-year-olds too, but they've got 10 years left in their career, not 30. And so we wanted to really position ourselves as the destination for young meeting executives. We also believe that the outdoor orientation and the great activities we have here is a great match for those folks. So they'll have a great time here being participants in all the things you can do here, and that'll also help us in imprinting this destination on their association. So the first one of those will be here in October. It'll be here on an annual basis, and we think great things will come from that. In addition, John did a terrific job of working with Helms-Briscoe, and the Trade Show News Network has selected Reno as site for their November 2013 awards ceremony, contingent upon the board approving our package going forward, and that will be a little bit later on the agenda. But just to give you a little preview, this is an organization where they'll be awarding 50 top trade show executives from around the country at this event. And an additional 25 to 50 folks will be coming from those organizations and others to be at the event. So 75 may not seem like a lot of people, but it's 75 people representing some of the major trade show companies of North America, most of whom have never been to see the Reno-Sparks Convention Center, where this event will be taking place. We think it's a smart move to bring people here that would be very expensive to bring here one-on-one over a course of years in a very short order. And we'll talk in more detail about that, but we think it's a great investment by this destination. In addition, the Convention Industry Council announced while we were in D.C. that their 2015 CMP, Certified Meeting Professional Conclave, will be in Reno. It'll bring about 300 meeting planners here to take their CMP certification. Once again, CMP means you're a professional who takes your career seriously. 300 planners from all over the country coming here for that purpose, and in the meantime seeing a destination that many of them have never been to. You couldn't buy that one-on-one with time and money, but to have it here we think is a terrific development, and we are supporting that. I think is that the Grand Sierra? Yes. It's at the Grand Sierra, but the RSCVA, because of the importance of this group, will be involved in the promotion of our region while they're here. And then the leadership of PCMA. I just called the CEO of PCMA, who's an old friend of mine this week, and said, we really want your support for your board meeting coming here this fall. She said, you have it, Chris? I'll go down the hall and tell the meeting planner that I endorse it. And then I called the COO, who we had dinner with back in December, I had mentioned previously, who came out to talk about working more closely with us at our invitation. called Sheriff and told him we want their support. He said he will support it as well. So the top two people at PCMA are supporting the board of directors for PCMA being here in September of this year. It's about 50 people, but once again, they're the leaders, the movers and the shakers of the industry. Most of them have never been here before, and we've offered them a number of varieties of options, both at the lake at Fred's property and at several of our Reno properties. And so no matter where in Washoe they choose, we're going to work closely with them to make sure this is the maximization of exposure for our area. And then on top of that, ASAE, our good friends there, once again continue to give us special treatment, as well they should, as a strategic partner, but they're considering bringing their 2015 Fellows Retreat here. Fellows are people who are recognized by ASAE as being at the top of their game in the industry for decades. And as such, they represent the creme de la creme of the meetings industry. So to have the group of fellows come someplace, they take good care of these folks. They go to resort locations. We put forth the Hyatt Regency Lake Tahoe as a perfect place for them, with a terrific lineup of events and outside of activities. And we're feeling very good about that. We presented it to their meeting planner while John and I were in Washington, D.C. at ASAE. I spoke to John Graham, their CEO, who came by to see us while we were there, and we spoke to Carl Ely, their vice president, while we were there. So once again, little old Reno Tahoe is working with the top tier of decision makers and organizations and events in the industry to get more and more of them to take place here and expose more and more people to our destination. We're getting less than our fair share of meetings and conventions, but we're doing everything possible to speed that process up to the absolute maximum velocity. And then on top of all that good news in the meetings and conventions front, we continue to kick butt in the sports market. We've got an incredible lineup of sports coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks to take a look at us for the first time. Judo, weightlifting, taekwondo, archery, triathlon, combined potential of 7,900 new room nights from new sporting events. Shelley Fine has done a terrific job in that industry, and Shelley has delivered along with this destination so consistently that other sports hear from their peers about what a great experience Reno is, and they're interested in bringing their events to Reno and Tahoe and Sparks for their respective sports. So continues to be a growth area for us, and one that we continue turning up new sporting opportunities. In December, we had a series of sales calls that John participated in down in Atlanta. And I bring this up because we talk about Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York, but Atlanta is one of the biggest cities in the South, and has a lot of interesting convention opportunities for us. So John went down with our national sales manager from D.C. She had set up a terrific series of events and sales calls, and really made some terrific progress. It's been a previous untapped market, and we have a pending site inspection that may generate 1,700 room nights, another lead that's we're working on for 2,800 room nights. So there's some good business in Atlanta, and it's important to note we can't focus all of our attention on LA and Washington, D.C. and some of the western states and forget about some of the other key markets of North America. In addition, we were down at IAE in Orlando, and one of the big companies based down there is Tupperware. And yes, they're still in business and still have a big sales group and still have major conventions. So when we were at PCMA in Orlando, we talked to their planners and had them attend our Cirque du Soleil event. And we are continuing to work with them on the possibility of Tupperware holding their annual convention out here to great benefit for this region. So we try to cross-promote as much as possible. When we go to PCMA, we talk to the guys from ASE and customers, then we go to IAE, and we have a follow-up conversation with people. So we keep these things moving face-to-face whenever possible, because that is so much preferred when it comes to getting definite business for this region. CSAE wrapped up the year in Sacramento. We brought our Willies over there. It won first place as best exhibit in their trade show, holiday trade show, but more importantly, we had a lot of booth traffic and a lot of folks talking about how Reno Tahoe seemed to have woken up recently. U.S. Sports Congress, we attended, and we're hosting it in December of this year. We got 2 new leads for sporting events that came from this event most recently. So the fact that it'll be here in Reno Tahoe and bring all these folks from the sporting industry here to see firsthand, if they haven't held competitions here, is another feather in our cap. And then Smart Mart in Dallas had sales calls down there, but most importantly, we confirmed the locksmiths for 2015 after pursuing them for 3 solid years. It actually is going to be 2 separate meetings totaling 3,400 room nights from all the locksmiths of this country. So if you lock yourself out of your car or house that week, it's a good time for them to be here. In January, as previously noted, we terminated one of our DC-based sales managers on performance issues, and are actively pursuing a replacement. It's a key market. We're not going to accept a second-tier person. We want somebody who can bring customer relationships that can be converted to this destination. So a good salesperson is part of the equation. A good salesperson with a lot of loyal customers that will do anything for them is what we're looking for. And we think this destination deserves that, and we think the appeal of this destination warrants us getting that quality of person. PCMA noted we had 12 clients at Cirque du Soleil, 2 of which were specific citywide leads we're working on, and then we're moving forward with a lot of other customers in building relationships from that type of social event. John also flew to Scottsdale to meet with Helms Briscoe. We had their sales event here last year, and we wanted to talk to them about what we can do to get even more leads from Helms Briscoe here. We'd expected a larger spike in business as a result of them being here. We haven't seen that yet. They acknowledge that they're disappointed it hasn't delivered in bigger numbers for us, and John's talked to them about some strategies and tactics we can employ to get more business from Helms Briscoe, which is arguably the biggest of the third-party meeting planner companies. We have a very good relationship with them, and I commend John for taking that aggressive approach with them. Reno Tahoe Meetings Co-op, this is the one we do in conjunction with our friends at Lake Tahoe and their various organizations. It's typically called the Come See Fly Free campaign, but that heading is sort of moving to the background now, and it's great value, great values. The idea is to have a slightly different approach than what we do with our aggressive campaign that's fielded by the RSCVA, and be a partner in a campaign that talks about we have a terrific value destination here, and if you come here, we're going to make a donation when you do a site, send us an RFP to a worthy cause. If you come here for a site inspection, we're going to make a bigger donation to a worthy cause. And if you come here and book your convention, we're going to make an even bigger donation. You know, we're talking about $500 and $1,000 type of donations, but the idea that you can choose a place that's saving your company or organization money and also have the American Heart Association or ASPCA or Susan G. Komen benefit from it financially appeals to a lot of folks. So if you're a numbers kind of guy or gal, and our talk about how the benefits of our model here with the RCVA owning and managing the facilities, that may speak to you. Or maybe you're more of a touchy-feely person. You're going to see an ad alternating in the same magazines that talks about how we're a great value, but you can also do good from a social impact basis. It's 2 different extremes, but either way, Reno Tahoe has something to offer. So going forward, we think that's a pretty cool 1-2 punch in the meetings industry. On the tourism sales front, we had the Nevada Conference on Tourism at the Nugget. It was a very good meeting. That's where we launched our All Seasons, 1,000 Reasons slogan to great acclaim. And it was great to have them back in the Reno-Sparks area and show how important this part of the state is to the tourism figure. Vegas may be 10 times as big as we are, but we're 10 times as big as all the other guys, and it's important for folks around the state to remember that as we move forward. We partnered with NCOT in October for a Mexico sales mission, and it's just important to note that one of the top online travel agencies in the country of Mexico now is featuring Reno Tahoe skiing to their 2.8 million readers. So good things do come out of our partnership with NCOT on a number of the FAMs we do for the state. We also launched new group travel itineraries on our website, which do a really nice job of showcasing some of the different tracks that wholesalers and travel companies can take advantage of when they bring customers here and build programs. If you take a look at the website, I think you'll agree that it's very, very well done. We exhibited at American Bus Association, National Tour Association, Go West, partnering with U.S. Airways Vacations. The key holidays, Reno Fun and Snow Trains, are back for 2013. There'll be 10 trains running that have been running in February and continue in March. Generates about 3,800 room nights for us in the Sands, Circus, Nugget, Harrah's, Reno, El Dorado, Silver Legacy, and Peppermill. We provided $5,000 of marketing support, a relatively small number, in direct mail, via magazine, newspaper insertions, TV, and Eye on the Bay travel program to support it. And they've been listed on our website, did a promotion, over 2,000 people entered the contest, so good response on that. If I may, Mr. Chairman, can I move into marketing?
Thank you, Mr. President. Got a proposition for you. Okay. It's now 10:06, and observing certain things about board behavior. We got some substantive issues down under item 8.
Okay.
And I've talked to Mr. Sullivan, and maybe this would be a good natural place to take a break, not to take a break, but to alter the agenda.
Sure.
And I would propose that we, speaking of quorum issues, maybe we take a vote on all the consent items. Okay. Except for those items in item 8. I think that might technically be part of consent.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
Just through.
Take a, through item I, take a vote on all of those, and then put off staff presentation and board Q&A until after the item 8 items and others. Then we're going to start to lose members, and then we will have taken the vote. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I want to open up the discussion as to Finance Committee and other items later, and move into items J, K, L, M, et cetera now. Anybody object to that? I'm just saying, I know how I am. I know how you guys are. You're just going to start getting up and saying, you know, it's 11:30. I got to be at so and so. So. If there's no objection, we'll do that, okay? All right? Then...
So you want a motion on items C through I?
I would.
Move to approve items C through I.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for the consent items. We're doing a little bit differently, and I'll stay here and listen to the discussion, and there's a technique for that. We can call it a committee if we do lose a quorum, and we can still have the discussion, okay? So we'll stay and have staff presentation on the items that we have not specifically discussed so far. All right? So based on that discussion, any other discussion of the motion as to those consent items? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. May we proceed to item 8, sub J?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The strategic plan has been completed, presented to the Marketing and Sales Committee, where it was approved. The only change requested was that an additional year of goals be included, so that we had a 2-year presentation of goals for each of the specific strategies. This group is very familiar with the strategies that were approved last year. And what I'd like to do is just briefly review what's new and different about the strategic plan, because it does follow the general format of what was approved previously by the board for a strategic plan for the RSCVA. It's been updated and has a couple of twists in it, but basically it's the same format that was previously used by the organization. Mission statement has been tweaked slightly. The mission of the RSCVA is to attract overnight visitors to hotels and resorts throughout Washoe County through effective marketing, productive meeting, convention, and event sales, and efficient and effective facility operations, thereby enhancing the economy and quality of life of Northern Nevada. We all know the brand slogan and tagline and the positioning statement. I added a vision statement here because I think that it's helpful to look ahead to 2016 and see where we could be if everything lined up and everything started coming together in a way that really benefits this region. Reno-Sparks and North Lake Tahoe have experienced an exciting rebirth over the last few years, thanks to a confluence of noteworthy events and third-party recognition and awards that have pushed Northern Nevada over a tipping point of interest from tourists, retirees, business owners, and meeting, convention, and event planners throughout North America. Thousands of first-time visitors arrive by car and plane year-round to enjoy our individualistic resorts, unique lineup of special events, and well-defined destination districts, areas of concentrated attractions and activities for tourists and meeting convention attendees. Visitors have numerous flights to choose from at competitive prices due to the increased demand that the RSCVA's marketing programs and increasingly productive sales efforts have generated. And our steady appearance on top 10 lists of virtually all types keeps prospective visitors intrigued about our increasingly popular destination. The RSCVA's facilities are running over 50% occupancy due to numerous new sources of business, like the annual Barrett-Jackson collector car auction, numerous film and television productions, and most of all, a dramatic increase in corporate and association meetings and conventions. So in the ideal world, that's where these efforts that are in place today would take us by 2016. We've also added 5 key strengths and weaknesses for meetings and conventions and the transient marketplace. There's no real surprise here, but let me quickly read through them. For meetings and conventions, our strengths are value, variety of major hotels to choose from, quality of convention center and specialized facilities, Lake Tahoe/mountain setting, and as a new meeting location for most groups. Our weaknesses are airlift, hotels that are too spread out for large conventions, reputation as a gaming-only destination, the fear that low prices equal low quality, and airfares. Moving to tourism, our strengths are the Lake Tahoe and mountain setting, our value, close to western population centers, special events, attractions, and activities, and gaming and entertainment options. Our weaknesses, perception as old and tired, our airfares, too many casinos for non-gamers, not perceived as a resort destination, and airlift. This leads into the key strategies and tactics, which we have all reviewed on several occasions. I'm going to just quickly go to each new element, which are the key measurements for 2012 and 2013, and then 2013-2014. We've made these numeric whenever possible so that the goals are easily assessed. For the first strategy, the goal for 2012-13 is to generate 5 major national media stories in support of our four-season resort positioning. Nothing speaks to results like the national media believing what we're doing here is newsworthy, and that would jump to 10 for 2013 and 14. For strategy 2, about making us a player in meetings and conventions, the key measurements are to achieve 80% of our annual sales goal of 228,000 in 2012-13 and increase our year-over-year attendance at ASAE and the DC sales mission by 20%, and then 1 year later to achieve the annual sales goal 100% of 228,000 and increase the year-over-year attendance at ASAE and DC sales mission by 10%. For strategy number 3, about aggressive marketing programs to increase our awareness, the key measurements in 12-13 are to increase summer visitation to visit Reno-Tahoe.com by 10% year-over-year and increase the pipeline of tentative meeting and convention business by 20% year-over-year in the group side. That is an additional 10% increase in 13-14, and the pipeline increase would go up to 30% in 13-14 for meetings and conventions. In strategy number 4, about basically our product here for visitors, the key measurements in 12-13 are develop a final list of destination districts with community support to really define what are the areas of town where we have specific individual attractions. And then in 13-14, creating marketing materials that explain the destination districts and highlight their unique features, and creating photo ops, which start in 12-13 and proceed to 13-14. Under strategy 5, the key measurements for the capital situation is to find funding for $250,000 of capital improvements to the Reno-Sparks Livestock Event Center in 12-13, and to develop a new source for $500,000 of capital improvement funds annually in 13-14. It is our recommendation that we hold a half-day board retreat in March, as previously discussed. And Jim Johnson and I have had several meetings regarding that event. We invite all the CEOs of the major resort properties and this board to have a conversation about our strategic direction going forward and make sure we're all on the same page.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a key measurement here, you're talking about capital improvements. You're talking about repairs for replacement, maintenance, or new capital improvements?
Basically repairs and maintenance.
Could we make that reflect repairs and maintenance as opposed to capital improvements?
We certainly can.
There's certainly a difference. There's a difference.
Valid point. You could argue on some things. The sign, for example, needs to be replaced. That's $100,000 for a new sign. It's a capital improvement, but part of it's changing to really a new, upgraded sign.
We need to maintain what we have.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that the focus is on having adequate funds available to maintain the facilities in a fashion that's going to make sure that
Right. That's our first priority. Yeah. Good point. We can make that change. I think one of the interesting things that came out this past week was in the article by the Grand Sierra's owners purchasing a property in Atlantic City. There was a list by the American Gaming Association of top U.S. gaming markets, and I don't know if anyone else was shocked to see that Reno-Sparks had dropped to number 14 nationwide. The last time this was done in 2006, we were number 8. So to see destinations like Philadelphia, which was previously unranked, jumping to number 7, downtown Detroit with 3 500-room casinos moving from 5 to 4, it just shows that our positioning as a four-season destination resort going forward really is the way we have to go, because our gaming positioning is even lower than I think a lot of folks would have guessed.
Thank you very much. We have a question from Ms. Cooney.
Thank you, Chris. I think you've moved towards what we discussed in the marketing committee, but we haven't really finished what we discussed. I mean, you haven't finished what we discussed in the marketing committee. Several points. One, I don't recall us saying that we would do 80% of the annual sales goal for this year. I know you're not reaching it, but we did set that goal before the year began, and I believe that that should be the goal.
Okay.
Depending on where we are. I have no problem with us setting the same goal for next year, given the current circumstances, but it should be an actual number. Also, under the other goals, other strategies like increased summer visitation, you have percentages. We talked about actually having specific numbers so we know where we are today, what number are we trying to hit for the next time.
I'm sorry, under which one?
I mean, all the ones where you have percentages, we need actual numbers to where we're hitting it. I mean, percentage is great, but it should say 10%, which is X number to get to X number.
Absolutely.
So it's all very, very clear. We also discussed defining what summer is. I know that's silly, but what is summer? Is it April to September? And what else did I want to say? So basically, I think those are, I think as far as approval today, I would like to defer until we actually have those specifics in here as we discussed at the marketing committee. Also, I just wanted to make a note too. We talked about doing the March retreat, which is great. I'm glad you're moving forward on that. Let's just make sure we give our stakeholders a couple of weeks' notice before that meeting is set. I know we had that issue last time. There was some confusion over inviting the CEOs, and they didn't wind up getting invited until the day before, and I just don't think that's appropriate. We need to make sure that everyone has plenty of time to get there.
Absolutely. As soon as we agree upon a date with this board, everyone would get a save the date information so they could know as far out as possible.
Yeah, so in general, I would say directionally, I think these goals and strategies are fine, but I think we still need some specifics that would be before they are officially approved.
Any other comments, questions? Ms. Zadra?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've come a partial way in what I thought we were discussing at the November retreat. And that is, what I'm seeing today is more of an operations plan for the coming fiscal year. And it would be a component of the strategic plan that I believe we talked about. But what we really need is concise, not four paragraphs on a mission statement that really, to me, is more of an executive summary. A mission statement needs to be very profound and succinct, and not, because of some of the changing times type of language. Needs to be very hard-hitting and succinct and mission-oriented, not a recap, and just a general summarization. And what's really missing for me is the 2, 5, 7-year concept that a strategic plan is designed and required to do. So we're working toward getting there. We're just not there. I wouldn't call this a strategic plan yet. It's a component that will be in with some modifications.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Mr. President, I apologize. I was having discussions. Do you have additional presentation?
On the strategic plan?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Then discussion on the presentation of the strategic plan. There's been a strong implication that not accept a final product, and please go back for more work from a couple members. Councilman Dorsch.
That's actually what I was going to ask is Beth, do you just want this to come back to the Sales and Marketing Committee next month?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
One more time. I know we're getting down to the end, but if we get this set well, then it'll be easier as we go into 13, 14 and on and beyond. So I prefer that we go back, discuss it one more time in the Sales and Marketing Committee, and we can even bring it up at the retreat too as well. So that should work. So should I make a motion to do that?
Please, I don't see any other discussion, so I think a motion would be, although maybe go to Mr.
Just a
Hawkins
question.
first.
Didn't we discuss at the retreat a 1, 3, 5, and 7-year goal?
I believe we did.
We
Strategy.
did discuss that, but honestly, when we were talking, we talked about that in the Sales and Marketing Committee as well. I think the world is in such a volatile situation that doing a 7-year plan at this point is a little bit moot. So that's why we were looking at more of a 5 on the outside. Because these days, you know, you're just going to wind up changing it if you do that anyway. But I do think, you know, a little more long-term, which we talked about doing, but 5-year, I think that's what we talked about. Isn't it, Chris?
Well, we've even talked about how 3 years today is considered
3
long-term
is sort of
just
like
because
5, yeah.
things are changing so rapidly.
So there was some discussion about how far out would really be prudent to look at anything.
It's also important to know, we also discussed how this is a living document, and
Right.
every year it will be updated. So we don't
Right.
do this and put it on the shelf for 3 years, which was, I guess, some of the approach in the past, because that document dates back quite a few years now. But we believe that the world is changing quickly, and things are changing that need to be addressed in a document this important. So it would be updated every year. Yeah.
Any other discussion before we go to Ms. Cooney's proposed motion? All right.
I don't think I actually said the motion, so let me go. I'd like to
It seemed...
motion to refer this item back to the Marketing Committee for further discussion before bringing it back to the board.
There's a motion and a second by Councilwoman Zadra of that motion. Is there any discussion of the specific motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Then that would take us to item K.
I'm going to ask Mr. Linen to present this, but I've been a part of this element and do support what he's presenting.
Thank you. This opportunity would give us some great exposure in the trade show industry. Trade Show News Network tracks about 250 of the top trade shows in the industry, and every year they create an award for the top 50 trade shows, 2 categories, one by attendance growth, the other one by square footage growth. Of the 250 trade shows that are tracked, if you will, by TSN, 100 of them would fit in the size of our convention center, and of those 100, 50 of those kind of rotate through western regions. So this is an opportunity to provide us great exposure in the trade show market, which is business that would impact either the Reno-Sparks Convention and Visitors Center or the Reno Event Center, which is an important part of our growth need, and that's business in that center. What they're looking for as part of, to host this is basically, we sponsor as a destination all of the elements for that event, which would include their guest rooms, their function space, their meal functions that they do at the awards, some stipend for their airfare, et cetera, in exchange for this exposure. They will also provide us extensive coverage leading up to the event. For example, they have already sent out a newsletter about our convention app that will reach about 12,000 people in the trade show industry. So we get extensive exposure and awareness. The other thing that's a benefit of this program is the people who run these trade shows typically may not be looking at some of the other publications where we currently have a presence. There's some publications that are very specific to the trade show industry, and right now we're not necessarily have exposure in that trade show industry. So that's the other side benefit of our partnership with this. Based on some budget projections, I anticipate the cost to be around $60,000. I think there's some opportunity for me to bring that down as I bring on sponsorships from our local partners who would want to enjoy some of that exposure. But I really wanted to make sure we went in with a number that we all can feel comfortable with in the event that the sponsorships didn't come through. The other side benefit that is in our proposed budget is I didn't want to just have a one-time shot with this opportunity. I wanted to be able to create this exposure over a course of the next 3 years so that we can really build this long-term relationship. And one of the things I had proposed was put together a scholarship fund that they currently do not have that would be branded by Reno Tahoe USA, and allow us for the next 3 years, or as long as we like this opportunity, to be in front and center with them at their annual program every year, wherever it goes. Currently, today, they do not allow any other competing destinations to have any presence at these events. So when it comes here to Reno Tahoe, it'll be just about us, but when it goes somewhere next year, if we agree with the scholarship, we'll have a presence at wherever it goes. So I like the opportunity. I think it would really enhance us. There's some great groups that are out there that this can open up doors for us. You know, you've got the Firehouse Expo, Garden Expo. There's a number of them. Safari was an award winner in the past. Outdoor Retailer was an award winner in the past. It shows you the type of business that we'd be exposed to. So with your support, I submit that to approval for a $60,000 line item to go after and host this event.
John, did you discuss this with your sales group, the property sales groups, and what was the feedback from them?
Very, very supportive. And one of the hotels that stepped up, you know, Pat's just left, but both Lannis and Peppermill were very excited about this opportunity. And they would be part of that whole package. You know, the way the program lays out, Friday night would be most likely in our new Kingpin facilities. We would do a little bowling event. Saturday would be at the convention center for their meetings and their breakfast, lunch perhaps at the Lannis, and then the Peppermill would host the closing dinner.
And just to delineate the difference here, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, a trade show is primarily just that. It's an exhibition where people come to go to the exhibition. A convention or meeting is just that, where people come to meet with each other, and sometimes there's a trade show or exhibition as part of that greater meeting or convention. So much of what we do goes after the meeting and convention business, which may or may not have a trade show as a component. The trade show industry, as John noted, is somewhat different. There's overlap, but is somewhat different. And really, a safari club really is a trade show more than a convention. Sometimes that nuance gets lost, but this is a bunch of people we're not talking to as directly as we are the meeting and convention planners, and as such represents a whole bunch of other set of opportunities for this destination compared to the people who see us all the time at ASAE and PCMA and MPI and other organizations we're so active in.
Follow-up.
Go ahead.
Where is the 60,000 coming out of what budget, and is that already budgeted? How are you handling that piece?
Well, that would be part of the if approved, it would be part of the 13-14 budget, and it would come out of one of my line items.
We might end up canceling some we've done in the past to make the funds available for this because we see this is an incredible opportunity.
I think it's a great opportunity, by the way. I just wanted to make sure we thought through everything, and of course, just again, want to make sure that all the properties are represented. I'm sure you'll be good
Yes,
about
and
that.
like I said, once this is finalized, and they have to come out and look over the facilities and all that kind of stuff, but we will try to find other ways to create additional exposure for the properties that aren't hosting one of the events.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Zadra.
And that was part of my question is, first of all, I think it's a great idea, you know, looking to expand what we're trying to grab business from. And if you envision that it might be replacing something else that you potentially have done in the budget before. And actually a comparison, I don't even have a memory of what you spend, for instance, like the Biggest Little City or Winter Fam or one of those. How does that compare? It seems reasonable to me, but how does that compare to one of those events?
A FAM trip is somewhere around 30,000, 35,000, somewhere in that range. The BLC is significantly less because we don't pay for the customer's airfare. They all have access to airfare, so the BLC is a lot less spend in that regard. So FAM trips, 30, 35,000, sales missions, 40,000 in that range.
And you've been able to identify that this is a larger target in many cases.
Yes, it's larger in terms of that it has larger events.
Right.
that bring more room nights. So it's really going after the bigger fish.
Right.
All we really need to do is book one event, and we've paid for this. So if we find one 5,000 room night trade show that wants to come here, we've paid for this event and then some.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
No, I think I had my question answered. I was just, you guys discussed the scholarship, and they were open to it.
They thought that was one of the most creative things and really helped us gain their support, provided that we have the same support back. But they were very excited about that. They hadn't thought about that. And it allows them an opportunity for them to reach out to their younger leaders that are coming up and better position the trade show industry.
Yeah, I guess the concern would be if everybody submitted their proposals and, they voted that it might, since it was never done before, maybe that would blow us out of the water. I mean, I think it's a great idea too, but you said it's, no city has ever been allowed to, or space has ever been allowed to promote in future years. I mean, I think it's a spectacular idea, but would that disqualify us somehow?
No, I asked that
if it went
specific
further down the
question.
line? Okay.
Good question. I asked that to make sure, and they said, no, they would see that as a different entity because we're actually sponsoring in their name the scholarship fund. And we would have the first right of refusal after the third year.
It's actually a very clever way around the rule.
And our name, right?
It's interesting. Here's an email they sent us on a number of issues indicating they'd like to wait to announce the scholarship because they think it's newsworthy enough on its own. In other words, they're so excited about it, they don't want to get lost in the shuffle of the overall announcement of choosing Reno Tahoe. They want it to have a standalone announcement so they can get all the benefit from it and also give us the benefit. And so it's a really clever way to have ongoing presence after the 1 year where we have all the presence. And, once again, we're trying to really think in creative ways to get our name everywhere possible in the maximum way. And I give John and his team a lot of credit for putting together a package that does that for us, as well as brings a bunch of customers who would otherwise never be here.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? If there's no additional presentation.
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Councilman Dortch, second by Ms. Cooney. Is there any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then that would take us to our council and Ms. Rezak.
Good morning. Under agenda item L, in your packet is a memo outlining the process for the calendar year 2012 CEO evaluation. You'll recall at the November retreat, it was voted on and approved to have essentially a calendar year 2012 evaluation, so that then we would start with a fiscal year evaluation that will occur this, in the next few months. Right now, in this agenda item is only discussing the calendar year 2012. What we have done is, based upon the policy that was approved, went ahead and generated the questions for those evaluations, both to executive staff, and then there's 2 board evaluations to be done. One is a merit evaluation. The second is related to the incentive bonus. This is all following the policies as well as the goals that have already been set out. And so what we're looking at today is to make sure everybody is on board with how the questions were drafted and if there were any questions.
Are there any questions, any discussion to this point?
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Is it the timeline is in here for this particular review?
Yes, the timeline is going to be, it's actually on the front page of the memo. Because this goes off the policy, because it's a calendar year review, our intent is we prepared all of the documentation so that the surveys can be done very quickly. The president CEO can do his self-evaluation. We would obtain and give all of that information to the board. You would do your evaluations. We would compile that so that you would have all that information for the March board meeting.
Are there any other questions? Is there any additional presentation?
No.
Yeah. All right.
One more question.
Go ahead.
So, so we get this done in the next month, then I would assume if there's any increase to Mr. Baum's salary, that would be retroactive to the, back to the first of this year? Is that correct?
That
Or we
would be
or we
subject
would
to
have
however you
discuss?
would decide.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there any more discussion of item L?
Motion to approve the process as outlined?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Second by Councilman Dortch, I heard first. Is there any discussion of that motion? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. All those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
That would take us to item M. Mr. Higgins, Mr. Scolari, standing in for Mr. Higgins.
We had a real busy committee day today, so since I was here as legal counsel, I told Sean I would cover the legislative report. You should all have our printout here. That's pretty simple right now, but before I get into that, just a little highlight of the first month. It was more active than usual. We have a new leadership, a speaker who is Kirkpatrick, who's very active and getting people moving on bills faster than usual. We have a Senate Majority Leader in Mo Dennis who is also pushing his colleagues to move bills faster. So we had a busier than usual month. We had the passage in a little under 5 hours from introduction to signature by governor in the race to be the first on the online gaming bill. That was done last week, which was really interesting and unprecedented, which had a ton of support from a lot of folks. We've also had interesting committees formed to deal with issues with a certain assemblyman, which has been real interesting as well. So with that, you have our report, and I'll just go through these one by one to give you kind of where we're at on every one of them. AB 4 is a public records bill. It is being pushed by the counties and cities, which is something that we support as well. What it does is allow, if you have legal notices that you have to post, it's going to allow governmental entities to do that on their own websites. The Press Association, we're expecting, is going to be against this because that's a revenue producer for them. So we're watching this. It certainly would. We don't have a ton of legal notices, but the finance staff does, through room tax and things like that, have legal notices now and again, which would help us be a little bit more efficient. The day-to-day paper newspaper, we're not sure that really serves the best purpose anymore, and everyone does have a website that folks can go to, so we'll see how that comes out. AB 19 is another interesting one. A little bit of background: the fairground property is owned by the state, and it's controlled by a use trust, which is set in statute, and those use trusts have provisions in there that property has to promote agriculture and those types of uses. And part of that, there was an advisory committee that was formed back when that trust was set up. The advisory committee never met, ever, and I think in its 50 years of existence or something like that. So through the governor's plan to make government more efficient, they've combined that committee, and that in this bill to be taken over by the Junior Livestock Board, which is a more active board. And they've approached the RSCVA to reconstitute an office that was originally occupied by the State Fair at the Livestock Event Center Administrative Building, which we've been cooperative in and are watching this bill as it moves through. The Rodeo Association had a concern to make sure their interests were protected, and they got that communicated to the Department of Agriculture, who is pushing this bill, and they proposed an amendment that I believe will be accepted, and the Rodeo Association is happy with this legislation if it moves forward. AB 65 is an open meeting law bill and is on our list, for obvious reasons. This is a bill that the Attorney General, who enforces the open meeting law, has put forward. One of the major changes in it is providing an exemption to the open meeting law if the board or committee of the board meets for the sole purpose of gathering facts, as long as that board doesn't deliberate or move to deliberate or take any action. So that'll help in some regards. We have identified, obviously, this bill to explore a possible tweak in how we deal with our president and CEO in hiring and recruiting, and also dealing with CEO personnel issues. Our original understanding was that NACO, the National Association of Counties, and the cities were going to support a bill to make changes in that regard. When we approached them, they indicated we're not going to use one of our bill draft requests for that issue. And our county managers and our city managers are public figures. We hire from the public figures, a little bit different, so it's not a hill to die for us. We also approached the airport authority, asked them if they would support moving forward in that regard. They indicated we have bigger fish to fry in this session, and that was communicated to me through their lobbyist and their legal counsel, that they weren't going to pursue that as well. So as of now, we're the lone organization on that issue, which can make it not impossible, but makes it a lot more difficult for us to get something. As these open meeting laws bills make their way through, we're going to obviously pursue opportunities to get an amendment in there. But it's made it a lot more difficult not having a broad range support from the cities and counties. If you have any experience with the legislature, it'd be a big push for this body alone just to push a change like that. So that's if there's any questions on that.
We have some questions.
Yeah,
Councilman George.
Yeah, I mean, from our standpoint, I'm pretty confident we can get the city of Reno behind it. You know, I mean, and I would be a little surprised if, you know, the county and Sparks wouldn't want to jump on board too. I mean, just because of the issues we've had up here. I mean, I think, and I don't think anybody thinks it's appropriate. I mean, regardless of whether you're hiring them from the public sector or not, I don't think anyone thinks it's appropriate to have personnel sessions in public. I mean, I think those need to be done privately. I mean, any action still has to be taken publicly, but I think any personnel sessions should be done in private. And I mean, even the legislators I've talked to agree with that. So I think we can. I think we should really make a push for that. And I still think the hiring process can be greatly improved upon. You know, I mean, we managed this last time, but it's challenging the way it is today, and I think we've got to make improvements to it. So, I mean, I'm fairly confident we can get the city behind it.
And I would agree, Mr. Chair. And truly, I believe that you will get, you know, it's easy for us not to take the front runner of it, but to come on board as support, which certainly gives the legislators a lot more confidence. But we've all had issues, and we're all constantly evaluating, you know, are we within, particularly as it relates to the fact-finding piece. And, you know, the personnel-related portion of it is just so clear. I mean, there's no one in private industry who performs, you know, that function in front of their board of directors or employee meetings. So you will get the support, I'm quite certain.
Yeah, and that would be really helpful if that can get communicated to the city lobbyists and county lobbyists.
And we can make sure it's on our next agenda.
That'd be very helpful to us, because we got a blank stare when we first approached them. So we're still continuing to push it, obviously. I mean, this is one of our priorities. So I just wanted to give a picture of what we're hearing in the building right now. It's kind of put us a lone wolf in this one. So it'd be great to get. We'll get
it on our next agenda.
Those folks involved, and we have vehicles, obviously, to get that. And I think we do have legislator support. When you talk to them about the issue, you know, I think it was an unintended consequence of something that was an overreaction to something that happened, you know, now going on 10, 12 years ago. So I think there's an opportunity there.
Just a comment. the airport authority was the prime mover on this, and now they no longer wish to be involved. Okay, I guess that speaks for itself. Okay, thank you. Any other bills?
The other one is AB 118. It's another open meeting law bill, which I thought, just for amusement purposes, I'd put on here that legislature is the one who passes laws regarding the open meeting law, but then they exempt themselves. And Mr. Hickey and the other Republicans on that list have put in a bill to make the legislature more open and transparent. So we'll see where this one goes. It'll be interesting to watch. So I thought you guys would get a kick out of that one. SB 165, Chris has touched on it. If you recall, in October, we passed our legislative platform. One of those high priority active support was on this film tax credit. We did present to the Revenue Committee and the Finance side. We met yesterday with Senator Aaron Ford, who's the primary sponsor of the bill, and his committee and the Revenue and Development Committee staff. They gave us this document of questions that need to be answered by the proponents of the bill that Chris has a copy of. I will say that what we're hearing from legislators, we love the concept. The biggest question out there, just so everyone knows, is the fiscal impact on the state and or local governments. And the way Senator Ford has asked the proponents to proceed is find an independent evaluation that at the end of the day, if you run through a hypothetical, if a production's in the state of Nevada, at the end of the day, the numbers say that it's revenue neutral to the state and local governments. So that's what's being worked on now. And so I think if we can overcome some of those type of hurdles and the fiscal issue people get comfortable with, I think this has a pretty good shot, because we've gotten some real good feedback on the concept, and everyone wants to grow this industry. It's just, at the end of the day, is it going to be revenue neutral to the state and to the local governments? So with that, I can turn that over to questions.
Councilman Dorch has a question.
Yeah, and just so you're aware, we did discuss this yesterday at our meeting at City Council, and there are some concerns with it in the sense of what impact it is going to have on local governments. And the way we understand it right now is it really doesn't talk about how these credits are going to work yet. And the way it was presented to us is, let's say a film production crew comes in, and let's say they're filming down in Vegas, and they have $1 million in expenses down there. They might get 20% back as a credit. Well, they can use that credit in Washoe County, the way the bill's currently written is, and the credit's transferable. So if the credit's transferable, they could actually sell that to a property or someone, and they could use that to offset their property taxes. Is that the way you understand it?
Typically, these bills are only for state taxes. They're not for local taxes. And virtually no film production has a tax liability, so they all will end up selling them to somebody who does have a tax liability. So XYZ Casino Company, for example, might have a large state tax bill. They would buy this at a discount, and they'd use it against their liability. So that's typically how it's worked, and that can be, the taxes that it can be utilized against on a state basis would be designated.
I mean, my understanding is it can be used to offset property taxes. Is the way it's written now.
Well, and I think that one of the things that's been discussed is the fact that feel free to define that in the way that is in fact intended by the bill. So, and
it can be used anywhere in the state. It doesn't, like, again, if most of the production's happening in Vegas and they're selling those credits to Washoe County, there's no benefit to Washoe County for this production, yet we could carry all the burden.
Typically, they're used by major corporations that have large statewide liabilities, and not typically used against local taxes. And that can be, the proponents have no problem with that being delineated, but that was kind of a technical.
I think and we did take a position to support if we could amend these issues, if we could amend it and get these issues addressed.
Absolutely. and it's a work in progress. The good thing is that we've avoided a lot of the mistakes that other states have made by learning from them. And this has been written specifically with great input from our consultant to make sure this maximizes the positive impact on local job hiring and local businesses. A lot of other states have written theirs too loosely, and as a result...
Right now the concern is it is written too loosely.
Yeah. Well, I think the intention is that area of the bill would always be more specifically delineated.
Our attempt is to make sure there are not the unforeseen consequences. And there's a huge opportunity for that in the current language. So as Dwight expressed, we took a support option as long as those risks are eliminated from the language and the unforeseen consequences are identified now as best possible so that we don't hold the burden.
Speaking for the County of Washoe, and turning to our Nevada Association of Counties, all counties are on notice, and we see an environment where certain recent large economic development initiatives were negotiated by the state of Nevada executive branch folks and literally abated local taxes. We had no voice. It is into that environment you have walked, and we're not going to let that happen again. Not going to happen. If it deals with property tax, hint, I think the state of Nevada receives a quarter, 25 cents property tax. So that's going to throw the burden onto the locals. Again, we'll have to work on changing it. It is detail oriented, and that's where the devil is in the details. Any other comment on AB 165? All right. Any other bills?
That's the end of the report today. We will continue to, if folks want to, we can send out a weekly one of these as we add bills to it if folks would like, so we can get feedback. That's easy to do. If
why don't you send it to all board members?
Okay.
Great, thank you.
We will do that. It's easy on the new legislative tracking programs that are there. It's real easy for us to do that. So
appreciate that, Mr. Hawkins.
You know, that's very interesting. That's not something I knew because I didn't read the bill. How'd you guys get the bill to read? I mean, was that disseminated publicly or?
Well, that's sort of the last item. He's going to send the weekly bill tracking.
I mean, the details of the bill.
Well, these two receive bill tracking from some of our experts. The city has some very fine folks down at the legislature. You can find them today affecting change as we speak and providing information.
Yeah, those are very
and
valid
once you have
points.
a number, you can go on the website and find it.
I
That's
see,
how
okay.
we, yeah.
And if you have any trouble, just email me and I'll make sure you get a copy of any bill that you want to see.
Okay.
If I could make a comment, City of Reno, City of Sparks, the County of Washoe, name a county, name an entity, RSCVA. You know what we have in common? We are seen as special interests. And that is a sad state of affairs, sir. But that's the way the state and the federal government tend to approach us. Okay. And you have to protect oneself.
Absolutely. Just a question about AB4, transitioning from print to website. Is there a vehicle to make everyone aware how to view public documents or legal notices on a website?
I think part of the bill still will establish a mechanism, the way it's set out now as a mechanism for each governmental entity to put in the newspaper that here's where the public notices will be, and then they'll have the website there, and then you'll go to the website, and hopefully everyone will be after a period of time conditioned. Again, the Press Association's always fought these really hard, so I'm not sure how far it'll make it, but it was an interesting. It's always been an interesting discussion.
It is interesting. All right. That was an update. Does council request any action, such as a position on any of these bills?
Not at this time, unless we wanted to take an active role any of those that we haven't already, as part of our legislative agenda, pursued.
Does any board member wish any action as to any of these bills, or we can proceed by consensus? Councilman Dortch.
Yeah, from my standpoint, unless he's asking for any specific direction, I don't see a need. I mean, I think if you feel you've got enough direction based upon our policies, then I think I'm okay.
Unless we need for our own kind of 165 as our own bill, even though we don't have a BDR, I get that. That we as this board take the same cautionary vote that the council did yesterday, that we support it as long as there's great caution in the language protecting the local entities.
Ladies and gentlemen,
That would be a motion, that this board take that same action.
all right. My counsel would be consistent with Councilman Dortch statement just had. We'll accept that motion, but at this stage of the session, it's a very different session because we have 100% new leadership, and I intend that to be a presentation of good news. They're very fine leaders committed to this state, but they're feeling their way. There are changes, and a lot of the bills, I tend to say the same thing about every bill that has controversy. To me, this is a bill that, for example, the taxation, the rebate bill, film commission, excuse me, as well as the open meeting bill. I would say the same thing about both bills. These are bills where you get them, the last version of the bill says 6th amendment and 6th reprint. That happens. Sometimes they go as high as 10. These are going to get the bejeebers amended out of them. And in the end, it's going to be a good bill. Defined as good for all concerned in this great state. That's what I see. Therefore, it mitigates against a substantive motion. It is early. That is the intent. Ma'am, did you have a specific motion?
Just that this board continue to support 165 so long as all of the impacts on local government have been addressed and mitigated appropriately.
Thank you. We have a motion. And there is a second by Councilman Dortch of that motion. May I say in discussion, in chatting with council, there was that list of items that I believe came from the committee members as to 165. Would you be able to email that to all members?
I can. It was a list of questions compiled by the committee staff based upon their own questions and then questions that came from the senators. So I can distribute that as well.
I think that everybody would find that helpful, especially the cities and the county.
And question number 6 speaks to the issue that was raised today as far as local impacts.
All right. So we have a motion of general support. Is there any discussion of that motion? And for no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
I do have one more item. Our top priority, obviously, is the capital, find capital money for our capital expenditures and capital improvements and maintenance of our facilities. We've had some discussions with Senator Debbie Smith. She is chair of the Senate Finance Committee. We're exploring a few opportunities I'd rather not divulge yet. And then there's that meeting scheduled with the Northern Nevada Resort Association members on March 5th, where I am told Debbie will be there, and part of the discussion is going to focus on the need for capital for our facilities. So that could be a very good discussion, see what can come out of that, and continue to find opportunities down there to find us some money. So it's a struggle, as you know, but we're doing everything we can to find creative ways to pitch to the Assembly and senators to find a way to get us some money for our facilities.
Thank you.
I'd just like to echo what Mr. Curtis had to say about defining between capital expenses and capital improvements. You know, what's repairs and maintenance and what's an actual improvement. So I hope that's more defined.
Good point. Any other discussion of the last comment of council? All right. Anything else, sir? Okay. Then we have a choice. It is now 11:01. One member has departed. This has gone faster than I thought. Is it all right if we proceed to items for future board members, et cetera, and then return to the some of the consent items, finance and marketing for Q&A and additional presentation? Is that acceptable to the board? All right, let us go to items for future board meetings. Staff, does the staff have anything that they would like to bring up specifically other than what we see in the agenda? All right,
This time.
to the members of the board. Any items for Mr. Curtis?
I'm on the road again next month, so I'm not going to be here for the discussion about the strategic plan. So I just want to, along the lines of Sharon's comment regarding the 2 to 7 year and the ongoing strategic plan element, and I understand that the world is changing. I very much understand that. I just want to, and as related to this particular item here, I would like to see in our strategic plan an ongoing reserve for replacement analysis and funding, ongoing funding, and that is into the future. Because if that is not recognized now, provided for, and included in the ongoing operation of this organization, we will, in fact, find ourselves in a position where all the facilities are falling down. I don't want to see that. So my hope is that we can include in the strategic plan an element that allows for proper reserves for replacement on an ongoing basis. And if that's not done, we're going to be looking at the disposition of certain facilities or the elimination of all the facilities, which would be less preferable. So that would be my board member comment for the board.
Thank you very much. A very, very astute comment. Any other items for future board meetings? All right, we will close that item and go to item 10, board member comments. Ms. Carano.
Thank you. I'd just like to mention that with NCOT, they are hosting a tourism day at the legislature on March 18th, and that we're encouraged all to attend. There's a whole day of agenda, luncheon, then there's an NCOT meeting. Love to attend that. But it would be great if we had some participation from this organization and your other organizations that you represent.
Thank you very much. And once again, that was March 18th. Yes. All right. It is on our calendars. Thank you. Any other board member comments?
Mr. Chairman, may I make...
Seeing none, we do the final public comment at the end, so return to the, I'm sorry, Ms. Zadra.
And it may have been in one of the reports still to come. Is there an agenda for any meetings, social, the welcoming events, so to speak, for National Bowling next week?
I was actually just going to comment on that. This Friday is the USBC opening reception, and I believe this group has been invited. The opening reception's at 6 p.m.
4:30 to
4:30 is the VIP reception.
And 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock's the grand opening. So another exciting year of bowling is about to start here.
Great.
In addition, we didn't comment on it because we sort of skipped over the marketing. I don't know if we're going to go back to marketing or if I should comment now, but
Was it the chair's intent to go back to marketing and as much presentation as members want? If you want to reopen the vote we took to approve those items, if there's something that strikes members as different, we can do that. It's your choice. Mr. Curtis.
Things pop into my mind at funny times, so I think I might have missed the item for future board meeting session, but if I can just, along the lines of these ideas that I've been mentioning regarding reserves for replacement, I believe there is a reserve for replacement analysis that's been completed. Is it possible that at one of the future board meetings we can review that reserve for replacement analysis, identify, approve it, and take action on it so that it can be incorporated in some fashion into our ongoing budget evaluation? Would that be an appropriate item for future board meetings? And if so, I'd like to do it.
Well, we can't discuss future board items except to name them. Perhaps a way to manage that, there's a glimmer of hope in the legislative session for some positive outcome for this CVA, and perhaps our staff can work up that issue at the appropriate time, and we could deal with that.
And there's two elements to this, obviously, income and expenses. I'm talking about the expense side. Obviously, the income side, we have to figure out how we're going to get it. But the expense side is sort of clear. Based on depreciated life of capital assets, we're going to understand what needs to be done. And I believe we already have that evaluation completed, but I haven't seen it in a while. And I'd like to go ahead and review it, make sure we agree upon it, and act upon it.
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a capital improvement plan based over the next 5 years, broken out into life safety, life cycle, that we presented to the Facilities Committee, I think, back in the fall. We can certainly bring that again forward, and it outlines the different, not only our two facilities, but we have a plan for the City of Reno's facility, which we work with them on. So for all four of the facilities, we do have the plan that Mr. Curtis is referring to available.
That sounds very good. So would you like that scheduled for next time, March?
I'd like it scheduled for
April? Oh, yes, of course. What country this time? Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Okay. So on or about April, we will look for that. Thank you.
I think that would be very fitting too, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, we bring a first draft of the budget forward in April. So they kind of go hand in glove together. So we'll have it. Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you. So we're back on items for future board meetings. We've returned to that. Any one last shot, board members? All right. No other board member comments? Again, this is sort of discombobulated, but back to the president and back to, I think you were on marketing. If you want to present your presentation in chief or just go to question and answer,
well,
your choice.
It was a rather light presentation of the month of December, update on our web statistics. As we know from past meetings, we tend to be at 100% or more on most of the goals we've set, with some exceeding that by many factors. I think the most noteworthy element there was this pile of brochures in front of you, which we are delighted to present as the new print collateral for our facilities and destination. You've all seen the new video that has been rolled out to great acclaim and response from our customers. Well, here is the print version of how we tell our story in the marketplace. The events and festivals brochure, it's pretty impressive when you start flipping through this and see beyond the ones that we think about every day, all the additional sort of second-tier events that happen here in such a wide variety and diversity of events. But then we have the convention and meeting planner, which is our primary brochure we give to customers and prospects in the field when they come here for site inspections and fam trips. Carefully thought through, printed on a paper you can actually write on with a ballpoint pen, which a lot of customers complain about when you have glossy stock. We think makes a very compelling case for this destination as a meeting and convention destination. And then individual brochures for our owned and managed facilities that allows someone looking just at one particular building to hone down to the specifics, the power grid, the square footage, the ceiling heights, the things they need to know when they're using one of those buildings in particular. We had a lot of old hodgepodge of materials, and one of our tactics in our strategic plan is to update and upgrade the way we message and put forth the new direction. And we're very proud of these pieces and think they represent a much more unified look for our destination and something that will work off the shelves for the next several years. So it was a lot of hard work by the marketing team, but I think the results are very good.
May I comment? Speaking for myself, this actual diagram of the convention center, very valuable. It's so frustrating. Someone says, Go to a meeting to Convention Center D4, room D4. That means nothing. This goes with it, and it's very helpful.
And we continue to get wonderful response from customers and prospects about how much they like our convention center. It's important to note, sometimes we feel, oh, gee, we don't have 1 million square feet. Well, most cities don't have 1 million square feet. We have 500,000 square feet, and it's all on one level. And for those of us who go to conventions, our convention center is much better laid out than most of the ones that other destinations are fielding today. And we hear that constantly from people who do this for a living. So having a nice new brochure that represents it more appropriately, we think is a terrific step.
Are there any questions as to the marketing segment? All right.
Just make a comment.
Go ahead.
And great appreciation that Nina has been able to participate in, at least 3 special event meetings that the city has had in the last couple of months, trying to bring some more solid planning and operating style policy management into our special events, and she's been a good participant, so thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. Special events are very important to us and are playing a bigger role than ever before in the way we position this region.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah,
questions?
I do. Chris, I notice on here we have All Seasons, 1,000 Reasons, and then here we have More Than You Know. Any reason?
All Seasons, 1,000 Reasons is the overall tagline for the destination. More Than You Know is unique to the meetings industry, and it carries through our advertising campaign, so we put it on the brochure. Obviously, people who attend conventions are also consumers, so there are certain times that All Seasons, 1,000 Reasons will be in front of a meeting crowd. But when we talk to the people who plan, which these brochures are aimed at, we have the continuity with our ad campaign. So just think of it, All Seasons, 1,000 Reasons, the overarching umbrella that applies to everybody. More Than You Know is the sort of the subcontext of people who plan events, because there's a lot of information they need to know that'll make them realize they've missed a good destination.
Any other comments or questions? All right, may we move on? Okay. There's been a request for Q&A from the board into the Finance Committee items or any other items. Are there any questions? Mr. Hawkins.
Sorry, a couple questions about the routine, non-routine expense sheet supplied, because I wasn't at all the Finance Committee meetings, if that's okay.
Hey, can I comment? I was in Carson City and I was headed for the Finance Committee, and it happened so fast I wound up at 1:45 or so and had a nice discussion with Brian and Chris. Meeting was over, so I know how you feel. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're looking at new lease for main offices for October. What kind of savings are we looking for by downsizing?
Brian, I think, can give us the latest numbers on those.
Right now, we're paying about $22,000 a month in rent, and the proposal to stay is around $13.5. The proposal, if we were to move to the U.S. Bank building, is around $15.7, I believe, off the top of my head, but still substantial savings over what we're paying today.
Okay, and then regarding the non-routine expense, for $15,000 for additional legal fees for Porter Gordon, what was it, the legislative work?
Mr. Scolari, do you remember what that was off the top of your head? The $15,000 for additional legal this year?
That, if I recall, that was related to the extra work we prepared and negotiated on the USBC deal. We had a couple months of major negotiation on that, due mostly in part to the legal counsel on the other side. And then also that was related to some extraordinary personnel issues that were happening at that time. And it was approved per our agreement by Mr. Rivers. There hasn't been any additional since then over the traditional monthly retainer.
Okay, thank you. And then so far I've spent almost 24,000 for expenses for film production to Bottom Line Entertainment. What exactly was that? I see there's some every month. What are we doing with them?
That is our film consultant, where the board approved us pursuing the film industry at our retreat last fall, but we agreed not to sign a contract with anyone and to do it on an a la carte basis, as we discussed. So on a month-to-month basis, he has actually been, without a contract, has been assisting in the drafting and production of the bill, and is actually right now, as we sit here, is responding to all those questions that our legal counsel received from Aaron Ford yesterday on our behalf. So as a working film producer, he's the only person who's working on behalf of this bill that has actually submitted and received film incentives. So he has the answers to all the complicated questions that the folks in Carson City are putting forth.
Okay, I gotcha. And there was a savings for about $35,000 for billboard advertising. How did that happen? Why was there a reduction over budget or under budget, 35,000?
Brian, do you want to answer that? It's not a savings, it's how it was laid out in the budget initially.
Mm-hmm.
We just put a flat fee. When we were budgeting, we didn't know what the media plan was going to be.
I see.
So in several times at meetings, we've said we're over budget, but it was just as planned for that month.
Gotcha, okay.
It's how it rolled out.
And then I see $4,000 that was budgeted for the storage lane, bowling lane storage. Is there any other charges on that facility for utilities or anything? Because I see the $4,000 lease payment, but I don't see anything else.
I know it's $4,000 a month for the base rent and the utilities and things.
And there are utilities which have been very minimal.
Are you going to include those anywhere eventually?
Well, those are under the threshold. The $4,000 a month is what Joe brought forward for approval for the rental of the space.
Right.
And those have been.
But I understood it was additional for any utilities.
I'll get you a breakdown. I thought we had that in the prior staff report. I can get you a breakdown on that.
Yeah, I think the contract on that said 4,000 base plus expenses. For
and I think there's a little bit of a maintenance fee, and then, but it wasn't much. I can get you the breakdown on those.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Very,
Chair.
very good questions. Ms. Cooney.
Quick question back to Mr. Spillman. What's the name of the company? Event? Bottom Line Entertainment.
Bottom Line
You
Entertainment.
had said that there was no contract. I'm a little concerned about that. Because he's basically on a monthly retainer now, is he not?
No, he's not.
So what are we paying him on a monthly basis?
He gets a fee of $6,000 a month, but it's approved month by month.
So month by month, but on an annual basis, that would add up. I mean, but you're planning on continuing that, correct?
Yes, and it's my intention to go to marketing and sales in March and discuss what my recommendation would be going
Okay.
forward, because we're in the midst right now of what's going on with the film incentive. So this is really the meat of the need for the outside expertise.
Right, I'm not questioning the need. I just think the
Right.
process seems to be a little not clear or not consistent with how we do things. So I'm just asking
Well-
how exactly we should be doing that.
And when this was approved back at the
Right.
retreat, the approval was to pursue the film and television
Totally.
industry with unanimous consent. There was not a dollar amount affixed to that, and there was a concern about signing a long-term contract.
Right.
So he said, we'll do this as on an a la carte basis and keep the expenses to a minimum, but do it on a month-by-month basis. There's no contract in support of that, but we'd like to maybe formalize it now that we're so far along.
Okay. All right, so we'll bring it back. We'll discuss at the next committee.
At the upcoming meeting
Okay, thank you.
in a few weeks, yes.
Mr. Chair, exactly the same kind of caution and concern as I've expressed every time we've had this conversation. There is a state agency that does much of this work, exactly tasked with much of this work, and the concerns that I thought we put into it when we approved a consulting kind of a relationship was that it wouldn't duplicate what is available and performed by the Nevada Film Office. So specifically, if we need to be so precise as to say there will be nothing that it could be performed by the film office that the consultant will be doing, therefore spending money for no reason, and excluding shows such as Con or Sundance that are absolutely attended for the very reason that we're attempting here by the State Film Office at their expense. Why would we duplicate? If we need to be that precise in the execution of this, then perhaps we need to be. But for no duplication, those words have been expressed before, and we need to see confirmation of that. $6,000 is a pretty steep monthly expense, very steep for following up on some legislation. For us to be at the 28 already is a bit alarming to me. So we would like to see exact activities. How is that bill that is submitted should come for us to be able, be it either finance or marketing or this full board. I want to see that.
It's
no
important.
duplication of activities.
Excuse me. Mr. Rivers, what is the contracting authority limit for consultants of this type? If we did one contract?
50,000 and below can be approved by Mr. Baum.
So after how many months at 6 Gs a month? What is that?
Eight-ish.
9 months? We would be there. And this is a method of, some people would say, some forensic accountant would say this is a method of aggregating. If you did not aggregate the contract, eventually you'd be there.
I believe Mr. Baum is attempting to bring that forward to make sure we don't violate any NRS or legal or contractual issues we have going forward.
Well, there's NRS, and then there's what's right, the right way to do it. Let's, next meeting, is that the request? Please.
May I please, for the record, just
Yes.
state, the State Film Office is prohibited from lobbying on behalf of legislation. So,
That's why I said no duplication.
correct.
There are activities that the State Film Office cannot do. There are activities that they can and do perform quite well and should continue to do that for our benefit without us duplicating on a contractual
And we have not
relationship.
attended any trade shows. This has all been focused on the development of the industry in Northern Nevada specific to this film incentive. So that has been what the focus has been. And the State Film Office doesn't even attend these meetings because they're so concerned with being perceived as being involved with this process. So if we do not take the lead on this, this thing is going to go nowhere. And we have kept them in the loop. We had another meeting with them the last time we were down in Las Vegas, and they're totally aware of what we're doing and supportive. They just can't be there and can't be on the record or voicing opinion on it.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? No?
Sorry. Thank you. I do think this is initiative, and I want to reiterate that. I think, there's definitely some possible really good things for the area if we're able to do this right. I just want to make sure we don't mess up on the process here and get ourselves into trouble.
Ms. Zed.
Chair, as an example, what are we paying for the entire lobbying fees?
It changed during session, Brian, so I don't know the total number, what it would be for a legislative year. Do you have that?
When that was approved, the total was 42,000 plus expenses for the fiscal year 12-13.
To cover the entire session, multiple bills. Puts it in perspective, and I forget what the city's paying for its, yeah. Wasn't it 18 months?
We actually, I think we did a 2-year contract with ours this time. We did it a little different than we've done in the past. But I want to say it was like 75 a year. Does that sound right? For the full year. I think is what.
All right. Any other Q&A on the consent agenda items? Finance, marketing, I guess facilities was not on there. We've exhausted all the questions, okay? Then Chair's interpretation would be that it is now time to go to final public comment. Madam Secretary, any cards? Is there any person present who wishes to give public comment?
Move to adjourn.
Close public comment. There's a motion to adjourn. Any objection to that motion? We be adjourned. Thank you very much.